In this video, I'm going to show some image processing work I've done. In particular, a tool I built in JavaScript where I can change the color of objects in a photo. Not just the hue, but the value and saturation as well. And I can go all the way from bright colors to white to black. I can do it very quickly right in the browser. And it's done by actually creating a new image with transparency, also known as alpha channel. So I can change the color behind the image and create the appearance of the object changing color, but with shading and specularity intact. Here the color picker is simply dynamically adjusting the background color behind the image. And, well, it just works because of the way the image is created. You can try this yourself by dragging and dropping an image onto the web page, as long as the image is high quality and has an object of a saturated color. It can work surprisingly well. You'll notice the color picker I'm using here is something I designed and built. It has some clever use of alpha channel and transparency itself to make it blend the colors dynamically, so it isn't having to manipulate individual pixels with JavaScript real time. Another example, just a chair. This could be very useful for typical products. Here you can see I can just change that color. Remember that this is the color behind the image that is changing real time. That's why it works so quickly. It takes a couple seconds to actually make the transparency in the image. You can see it takes just a bit as it scans down to do that, but then once that's done, changing the color behind it is very easy. This is just a photograph I took of a car sitting in front of my house. Again, works great all the way to black, all the way to white. That's something that is, I don't think anybody else has this capability, especially not doing it with the alpha channel of the image in the way I'm doing. A while back, the internet had a little bit of fun doing the chroma key effect on the Queen because she wears outfits that can look quite like a green screen. But you'll also notice they're rather crude in that they look very flat. You don't see shading and reflections on her outfit. It just is either all or nothing. Take a look at what you can do when you replace the background with an actual image. Here I'm just using the app Preview that comes with Macs, and in this case, some art by a local street artist that I like. And you can see that the shading and reflections are actually realistic, as if it's printed on there. And while the flatness of the pattern itself can be a giveaway, still the three-dimensionality of her outfit tends to come through, unlike on the other ones on the web. Here I'm doing it on a goldfish, which you notice with the goldfish, the hue varies. It's not as pure a hue as on a car, so you can get some really interesting effects. You can see things in that image that are hard to see in the original image, even though they are technically there. And here, as I change the colors around, you can see those come through. I can also adjust. You might have noticed I was adjusting the sliders to adjust some of the variables, how it handles things that are not exactly the hue that I click on. Here again, you can see some of the interesting effects if I paste it onto another image. Here I just use some trippy, colorful image I found on the web, and you can get it to look some really interesting effects that I think would be very, very difficult to do in Photoshop, even if you had that expensive program. You certainly, being able to do this just on a web page and then with a simple paint program like Preview on the Mac. Here's another example where it's not all a flat hue. Her hair is dyed pink, but it has a range of hue. And with that, you can experiment with the fall off tolerance, where you click on it, and you can get different effects. I think they're pretty interesting and potentially useful. You notice here her lips are similar to the color of her hair. We want to mask those off and say, don't change the color of her lips when her hair changes color. That's distracting and can be bothersome with some hair colors. I have this tool where I can draw. It's an experimental tool. I can apply a blur to it so you're less likely to see artifacts of it. And wherever I've drawn this mask, the effect is not going to be applied. Now, the user interface is not perfect for this. It's still experimental. But you can see I can toggle it. I can burn it in, toggle it off. But it's in effect now, and you notice that her lips don't change. And that makes for a much more effective presentation. And you can see we can get some, even starting with a dramatic pink hair color, you can go back to some pretty natural looking ones, or closer to natural, and it works pretty good. It's pretty effective for experimenting there. Again, here using the technique works best if you can find an image with a bright color thing, in this case a leather jacket. Started out red. Here I'm dragging a garbage mask in because his hands and face tend to change a little bit with the color, but using a garbage mask protects it from that. So you can just use an image as a garbage mask. It's very easy to create in Photoshop or GIMP or another paint program. Here we're going to try to see what that leather jacket would look like with a My Little Pony pattern. I think that is kind of cool. Again, just super quick doing this on the web. Let's try the leather jacket with our trippy, colorful background. I would totally wear that. Notice the highlights and the shading is correct, as if that was printed on there. And one more image. I want to show in a little more detail how the garbage mask drawing tool works. In this case, we have a Volkswagen Beetle with, we want to mask out this, I guess it's a turn signal light that is the same color as the car, but we don't want it to change color with it. So I'm using this drawing tool, which allows me to draw smooth curves interactively and then tweak them as Bezier curves. I don't think anybody has ever built a tool like this. I'd like to polish it up and do more with it, but here it was a itch I wanted to scratch to see what such a tool would work like, and it is a very powerful tool. It's also useful to do this in GIMP or what have you, but that's a pretty quick way of doing that. Again, I'm going to adjust the blur a little bit and burn it in and hide the garbage mask, and then re-click on it, and you can see that the turn signal is not affected while the other colors are. Powerful technique there. And here's a creative use of the technique. I actually painted a piano keyboard, a non-working one. I painted it red and photographed it, and you can see, of course, I can change it from white to black to anything in between. Here, just for kicks, let me show you what it looks like pasted on top of our colorful, trippy image. But what I really want to do, when I combine it with SVG, I can turn on and off SVG paths behind it in various colors and light up the keys like this. And I use this in my Pianoply project. One last thing I'll show here is another image processing technique, but this one is still even more experimental. It's put together with duct tape and baling wire. It actually uses my snippet editor for the user interface, just to make it really easy. I may put it into a web page, but I haven't really finished it up as much as the other technique. Here I drop in a black and white image. It's just a scan of my handwriting of my name, and it does a lightsabery glow effect. And this creates an image. It just creates it on a canvas, but I can paste it into a different image using the same sort of pasting approach. Of course, it also uses alpha channel, that is transparency, not just pure on and off, but with gradations of transparency. And you can see it's pretty effective. There's a lot of variables I can tweak to get different glow effects, but It is more complex than simply what you might think of as a variation on a blur. It's a little closer to edge detection. It's kind of a combination of blur and edge detection to get the right effect. And here's just some icons, just experimenting with different sort of images and what you can do with them. And I can use these anywhere Alpha Channel is supported, save them as ping files, use them in a web page. I can even paste them into the video editing program I'm using right now. Thanks for watching.